Hello, everybody. My name is Arsenii Naumov. I would like to present the Unlocking Web usability presentations, principles for exceptional user experiences. So today we're going to go on a journey through designing intuitive, engaging websites. I chose this topic because I'm very interested in that, and we'll see what happens. I prepared the slides, and unfortunately, we probably don't have a time for many examples, but most of the bullets you already know. You're already doing that. So this is the presentations that will just sum up all that we know about web usability. Let's go. So what is it, what does it mean, web usability? Usually it refers to the ease of use and accessibility of a website, ensuring that users can navigate, interact, and achieve their goals efficiently. So how much useful the website is. We have several ways to measure usability. So testing, surveys, usability scale, there's a special scale for that, some kind of scores, task success rates, and especially time on task for when they measure how much time does it take for a person to achieve its task, error rate and accessibility compliance, all those things. In our course, WDD 230, we usually use Lighthouse to measure all of that. So this is all familiar to you. Probably not by the structure. We'll see in detail. So what aspects shall we include in web usability specifically? User-centered design approach, clarity and simplicity, consistency, accessibility, mobile responsiveness, page load speed, intuitive navigation, readability and typography, that's my favorite, visual hierarchy, error handling, and user testing and feedback mechanisms. Okay, let's go one by one so you would know what is different between all those. So far, looks like a whole green swamp. No, this is distinctive, very distinctive features. I wanted to make them as distinctive as possible. Let's go over the first one, user-centered design approach. It places users at the heart of the design process, involving them in a research, prototyping, and testing stages. By understanding the behaviors, goals, and pain points, we can create websites that truly resonate with our audience. I don't think any governmental websites are actually user-centered. Prove me wrong. Sometimes they look like they created out of blue with no proper user-centered design. Well, maybe that's just my impression. Prove me wrong in the comments. So first of all, user research. Conduct through research and understand your target audience demographics, behaviors, needs, and preferences. We'll use some kind of such techniques such as surveys, interviews, personas to gather insights into user motivations and goals. This should done before the actual website creation. Next one is user journey mapping. Map out the user journey to understand the sequence of steps users take to accomplish their goals. Identify touch points and pain points, and then maybe eliminate some parts to make the path quicker. Prototyping and iteration. Well, this is rather tedious job, but we ought to develop prototypes in our website and specific features to test with users before final implementation. The bigger the project, the greater need is for that. And then you iterate based on your user feedback, insights gathered during testing to refine the design and enhance usability. And then finally, content strategy. What's the strategy behind all your content? You should develop a content strategy that aligns with user needs and preferences. Ensure that it's clear, concise, easy to understand, catering to different user personas and their goals. This is user-centered design approach, okay? Rather self-explanatory. Let's go to the next one. Clarity and simplicity. Something interesting, right? Clarity and simplicity in design are essential for guiding users through the website effortlessly. Eliminating clutter and unnecessary complexity, we create an environment where users can find what they need quickly and intuitively. Um, Visual clarity. Use the clear and high quality visuals that support the website's content and enhance the user experience. Ensure that images and graphics are relevant and add value to the page. Optimize images for fast loading times and prevent delays in the page load speed. We will talk about page load speed a bit further, but all the graphics should be as simple as possible. You see, I'm using some kind of a template where I created that on my own. When each bookmark is kind of expanding and expanding back, so you would all know, looking on the left, what we've gone through, and maybe the icon will remind you of the content. Okay, so this is part of the visual clarity. Simplified forms, similar to that, minimize the number of required fields to reduce friction of the user journey. Use inline validation to prove real-time feedback and guidance as users complete form fields. Clearly label form fields and improve instructions to help users understand what information is required. Then you can focus on content. Prioritize content based on user needs and goals, placing the most important information front and center. Remember that? Front and center. Avoid unnecessary distractions and irrelevant content that can distract from user experience. Use visual hierarchy to guide users' attention to most important content in the web page. But the visual hierarchy, we will talk about that later. Also, clear messaging. Ensure that the website's messaging is clear, concise, communicating the key information effectively. And of course, our favorite, white space. How much of the space is blank on your page? That's a white space. We ought to have it. Cluttered pages is just make the eyes of the user go all over, trying to search for seconds and seconds something they need, while in fact you already know what they need. Most of the time, you as a developer already know what they need. So place it center and front, and that's it. And you keep the white space. That will be better than just everything all over. And also consistent design elements. So maintain consistency in design elements such as colors, fonts, buttons, and icons through the websites. Well, for example, like in this presentation, I use distinctive two fonts and I use specific colors based on one team. I did develop part of it, but part of it is PowerPoint developed. So maybe this will be a good example of you. So it's all like in one style. Yeah, that's what we can say about it. One style. Consistency. That brings us more to one style thing. What does that mean actually? Consistent design elements maintain consistency in design element, such as colors, fonts, buttons, and icons through their websites. Use consistent terminology uh, and specific terminology to avoid confusion. Ensure the buttons and links are styled consistently to provide visual cues for interaction. What if the next slide will be looking completely different? Would you understand it's the same level slide? No. It's the same with websites. The same level elements should have the same level design. Brand consistency, something even bit deeper that goes outside the website. So maintain consistency with the brand visual identity, including logos, colors, brand elements. So when moment the clients come in the office of your company, they will immediately recognize elements from the website and vice versa. Use brand guidelines to ensure consistency in design elements and brand messaging. This is something from the brand book. Interactive consistency. Ensure that interactive elements such as buttons, links, and form fields behave consistently across the website. Use consistent hover effects, click states, and animations to provide visual feedbacks to users. Sometimes as we go into adding more features and we don't watch what kind of features do we add. We need to watch that they will be consistent, so the same hover effects and all those things will be actually added. This is consistency, as the symbol here provides. The same level elements should be the same shape and color, and it all should match together. Maybe this logo will help you understand this. And accessibility, of course, we know that. Accessibility, we know that we are not, we the people that see, hear, can read, can see the screen, are not the only people on this planet. There are people that can have some kind of they can be unusual, and they have special needs. So all the websites can and should be accessible. So, for example, what can we do to do that? To ensure accessibility, we can go to semantic HTML, so user proper HTML markup to ensure the content is structured logically and can be interpreted correctly by assistive technologies. Technologies will go through your website and make them readable for the people with disabilities. Keep that in mind. Use semantic elements such as header, nav, main, footer, and article to define the structure of the page. Also, alternative text for images. We have been doing that for maybe a whole semester, even some of you before. Our images have to have alternative text. Use alt text to convey the purpose of meaning images, avoiding overly long or vague descriptions. So it should be accurate and concise. Keyboard accessibility. I never thought about that. Ensure that all interactive elements, including links, buttons, or fields, are accessible via keyboard navigation. Use the tab index attribute to define a logical tab order for keyboard users. Ensure that focus styles are clearly visible to indicate the currently focused element. Inaccessible forms. Use label elements to associate form labels with the form controls, making it easier for screen readers to interpret. Provide descriptive instructions for error messages. That is very important also. For form fields to help users understand input requirements. Ensure that form validation messages are accessible, conveyed through multiple sensory channels. Okay? Contrast and color accessibility. That ensures that text and background colors have sufficient contrast. There are people that see, but they don't see really, really good as we are. So that should be easily readable by users with a low vision or color blindness. We should use color combination that meet WCAG contrast ratio guidelines, such as minimum contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1 for normal text and 3 to 1 for large text. Remember that, 4.5 to 1 and 3 to 1 for large text. And of course, accessible media players. I didn't thought about that before this presentation, but we should provide accessible controls and captions for audio and visual players to accommodate users who are deaf or hard of hearing. Ensure that media players can be operated via keyboard controls and the captions are accurately synchronized with audio or video content. Let's go into next one. Increasing use of mobile devices in our age, responsive design is more critical than ever. By adapting our websites to different screen sizes and resolutions, we provide a seamless experience of users, regardless of the device they're using. Special attention to very large screens, understand layout screens. Not only to the small screens we are adopting, but to the large one. I recently had a DeX P27, which is large screen all-in-one computer. Some websites looked very odd on a very large screen. So think about that too, okay? Of course, we should make a responsive layout. Inspect, and then you hit inspect in your browser, and then try to play with different sides of screens and see how your website is looking. Viewport meta tags, we all know that. So just for different sizes, wides of the screen, or maybe even heights, you have specific CSS rules. Flexible images and media. So there should be kind of, we should be not only set max width 100%, but just relative units, such as percentages or reams, for image dimensions and media elements to ensure that they scale properly on different devices. Touch-friendly design ensures that design and interactive elements, such as buttons, links, navigation menus, to be easily tappable on touchscreen devices, with sufficient spacing And a size to accommodate finger size. It's important on little screens and big screens also. Use CSS to increase the size of interactive elements on smaller screens and the bigger screens too. Don't forget about the big screens. Mobile-friendly navigation. We should simplify navigation menus for mobile devices using hamburger menus, expandable accordions, or tab interfaces. We're doing this semester, of course, and content prioritization. Prioritize and streamline content for mobile devices, focusing on delivering essential information and functionality upfront. Consider hiding non-essential elements or secondary content behind collapsible sections or expandable accordions to reduce clutter and scrolling. And of course, performer authorization. Optimize performance for mobile devices by minimizing file sizes, reducing HTTP requests, and leveraging browser caching. Compress images, minify CSS and JavaScript files as much as possible. And page load speed. This is something we were doing this semester. And this is whole world is obsessed now. So how fast is there are several rules how fast the website should be. I would just mention that optimized images should be used and then minified CSS and JavaScript and browser caching. So we could leverage browser caching by setting appropriate cache control headers for static assets. Specify a far future expiration date of static resources to instruct browsers to cache them locally. Use versioning of fingerprints printing techniques to force cache invalidation when files are uploaded. That's a very complex thing. We didn't do it this semester. And content delivery network. Use a CDN to distribute static assets across multiple servers geographically closer to users. Ooh, that's for professionals, even for backend, I would say. Asynchronous loading. We've been doing something like that. Use async for defer attributes for JavaScript files to ensure they load asynchronously without delaying of the page load. Lazy loading. We've been doing that. Implement lazy loading for images or other media assets that are not immediately visible on the viewport. Maybe you can allow them to not be visible right away. You just have a second or two for them to load. And so use lazy loading. And server-side optimization. Some like that's a backend, and there's the whole science about that. Okay. Next one, intuitive navigation. As you seen on the left, this is also an example on intuitive navigation. So if there would be a website, you would easily understand which tab is for what, even if there is no words. And this is very beneficial for international use of the websites, where you don't need to translate anything. You just have icons. Icons won the world together with emojis. Icons is a great achievement of the internet. People all over the world, without knowing even language, can navigate some websites. Imagine that. So, clear labels. Yes, use descriptive and easy to understand labels for navigation items. Make sure it's very international and just like very common to understand. Logical hierarchy. We'll go to that a bit further, but you should organize navigation menus in a logical hierarchy, grouping related items together and prioritizing important sections upward or like upfront, right? And then consistent placement. Keep navigation menus in consistent locations across pages to maintain familiarity and use for users. Imagine your navigation menu would jump from left to right. That will be very bad, right? You should keep it all the time, all the way in all pages, like in the same place. So it will be convenient familiarly, so ergonomically. And outside the websites, they use the term ergonomics, which is convenience of use of an item. Visual cues. Use visual cues such as hover effects, active states, and breadcrumbs to provide feedback and indicate the user current location within the website structure. The next one is readability and typography, which is my favorite. You should choose two, maybe even sometimes even one font that will be best readable. Best readable as heading, as text, as subheading, as anything. And I would is all the pair of font, complementary pair of fonts would make your website stand out. That's the thing that people are actually paying attention the most when they see the website. And that's a very connected with logo, of course, as a brand book. But the main is contrast. Ensure the sufficient contrast. 4:5:1 or 3:1 for large text, right? Font selection. I've talked about that. So choose legible fonts that are easy to read, especially at small sizes. Sans serif fonts like Arial, Helvetic, and Open Sans are commonly used for body text, while serif fonts like Georgia and Times New Roman can be used for headings and decorative elements. Well, yeah, that happens. But I like sans serif just just because it's more clear and more modern. Look, font size and line spacing. What about the size? Use comfortable font size and line spacing to improve readability. Aim for font size of at least 16 pixels for body text and line spacing. About 1.5 and 175 times the font size between the lines of the text, okay? Visual hierarchy. What can we say about that? Organizing content based on importance creates a clear visual hierarchy? Yes, it does. The most important thing should be visible, it should stand out, and then you should clearly identify what elements are below it, and then below it, and then below it, and then bring detail to each one of those. So size, color, contrast, white space, as we mentioned, and typography. All of this brings together as visual hierarchy. How about this one? Errors are inevitable, but how we handle them can make all the difference. By providing clear and actionable error messages, we help users troubleshoot problems effectively and maintain their trust in the websites. For example, clear and descriptive messages provide clear and concise error messages that explain what went wrong and how users can correct the error. Avoid technical jargon and use plain language that regular users, can understand. Display errors messages prominently and in close proximity to the field of action where the error occurred. Ensure the error messages are easily to spot and not overlooked by users. Validate user inputs in real time and provide immediate feedback if errors are detected. Use inline validation to highlight problematic fields and provide guidance to how to correct them. Anticipate common user errors, predict them, and implement preventive measures to minimize the occurrence of errors. For example, use input masks, autocomplete, and drop-down menus to help users enter data accurately. I love to use drop-down menus. It limits the options and makes the experience flawless. Also, user-friendly forms. Design forms with usability in mind, breaking them into smaller steps and providing clear instructions. Use progressive disclosure to reveal additional form fields only when necessary, reducing cognitive load on potential errors. You see how such a thing as errors could be a very useful thing in website building. Huh, who would have thought? Errors. Testing, that's the most important things. We can talk about testing for hours. That's a whole science, how to make it properly. I would only like to mention that usability testing is a very important thing. Then Forms are very valuable source of information, and doesn't matter what kind of a user you actually using for feedback. Is it your relative or your friend, and then your unfamiliar person, or real beta user or alpha user, and it's just like alpha beta test and in just inline user in time of the actual deployment of the website. All these feedbacks are very important. Those people are not you. They didn't build this website and they looking this afresh. This feedback is indispensable. We should orient ourselves on that. We can also interview them. So sit with them and just chat about the experience, trying to catch from psychology or user experience the insights on what could be done better. Analytics and metrics. That's also a valuable source of information. Google and bunch of other great tech provide very interesting instruments on analytics and metrics. You can watch through that and just have this big data and interpret it. Even if it's small data, that's still valuable. And interactive design. Iterative design. Use feedback from user testing and feedback mechanism to iteratively improve the website design functionality. So it's not like one time you did it and then that's it. No, iterative. Continuously refine and optimize the user experience based on the user input, testing results, and analytics data. Within a year after deployment of a website, it could look completely different because of iterative design, ensuring that the website evolves to meet users' changing needs over time. Well, we've been through all 11 steps in the web usability. By integrating these principles into your website development process, you can create websites that not only meet user needs, but exceed the expectations, ultimately driving success for your business and organizations. Let's embark on this journey to unlock the full potential of web usability together. And that